Are there any grievances?
There are.
The Leader of the Liberal Party.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. My grievance is to the Minister for Housing, and I thank the Minister for taking my grievance. On the 7th of June this year, some 2 weeks ago, a report was published in the West Australian titled "Retirees Bloody Hell." The story was about a retired gentleman who was the victim of a vicious beating stemming from an attempted robbery. The gentleman, Mr Christopher Hands, a volunteer with the Salvation Army, lives in a Holmes West complex. Mr Hands was out doing what he regularly does, undertaking a security walk around the complex and surrounding area. Mr Hands does this because his complex is a target for criminals who know there are many vulnerable people there. It is a sad reality that the residents see too many break-ins in their complex and crime in nearby streets. In the weeks prior to being assaulted, his Holmes West complex had experienced repeated criminal incidents, including stealing and damaging of cars and an attempted home invasion. The day before Mr Hand's assault, yet another home unit had windows, smashed windows being boarded up, waiting for repair. Some people spoke to media. Some residents, Ms June Field, told the media it's an open house where all elderly people here and we're easy prey. And another resident, Mr Bob Knight, felt that he was the initial target of criminals who assaulted Mr Hands, and he told media, this keeps happening, we're living in fear and we shouldn't have to. Now, I'm certain that the Minister agrees that Bob is right and that he shouldn't have to live in fear. Mr Hands believes that security for residents would be improved by installing security cameras and possibly a security gate at the complex. As the matter stands, there's no deterrent for anyone to wander into the same complex and pursue criminal activities. While security cameras and gates won't guarantee safety, they would no doubt provide some level of deterrence, at least from opportunistic crimes. Now, this is not an uncommon problem. The Minister would know that I have a significant amount of social housing and Holmes West housing in my own electorate. A few days after reading the article about Mr Hands, I was visited by a retired gentleman who lives in a Holmes West apartment in my electorate. He was very concerned about the constant fear that he and his others experience because of the threat of crime and antisocial behaviour in their building. He told me about various highly troubling incidents at the apartments that he lives in. He told me about a female neighbour who has a mattress up against the window to act as added security and protect her from broken glass because she's had her window smashed before, and also as a noise barrier. He told me about brazen drug dealing that goes on in and around the apartments. The car park is a magnet for criminals and cars are regularly broken into and occasionally stolen. I was informed that police do turn up to make arrests for various matters at the apartment, but there is little response when crimes are being reported. Most tenants in this gentleman's complex believe that cameras and gates and a secure car park will assist in reducing antisocial and criminal behaviour. The gentleman who visited my office expressed bewilderment at the routine dismissal of residents' concerns over crime and security, and he's raised the matter with the building manager and with Holmes West previously. The residents do not feel that Holmes West is taking their concerns seriously. Now, I do not know if there is funding to provide additional security measures in these apartments, but it seems reasonable that minor capital improvements for safety and security of vulnerable people in Holmes West complexes could be provided with security measures of cameras and, where appropriate, gates. And as I've said previously, while security cameras and gates won't guarantee safety, they would no doubt provide some level of deterrence, and they will certainly provide some added peace of mind and security for the residents. Therefore, I respectfully request the Minister for Housing to investigate a program of upgrading security at Holmes West apartment complexes. The cost should not be too great, particularly if this reduces property damage and theft at the apartments. This is a major concern for my constituent and other Holmes West residents, particularly in larger apartments. I hope that the Minister can look favourably on this request for upgraded security at Holmes West apartments and properties. Thank you.
The Minister for Housing.
I thank the member for his question. And I do want to first of all say this, and I've said this previously, that both myself as the Minister and the Government, but also the Department of Communities, does take very seriously any concerns relating to safety, and that we do not tolerate antisocial behaviour, whether it be Department of Communities tenants or otherwise. I mean, I have a genuine and sincere belief that everyone has a right to feel safe in their home. Now, I do want to say that we do implement a number of measures to ensure the safety and well-being of tenants across our properties. Now, you've got to understand this, that our agency is responsible for the maintenance of nearly 50,000 properties across government, including social housing and community housing. And I just want to be very clear about our obligations, first of all. Firstly, the agency is required to adhere to security provisions set out in the residential tenancy regulations. So this does include deadlocks on main entrances or compliant lockable security screens, external lighting at the main door, deadlocks or bolt locks on all other external doors, and lockable windows. So that's what we are required to do as per the regulations. In addition to that, all designated seniors accommodation includes barrier screens fitted to front and rear doors and all adjustable, accessible windows. Of course, the department also does provide consent for the installation of security cameras and other security measures at tenants, for tenants at their own expense, ensuring the privacy of other tenants and no damage to the property, for example. So there are conditions in installing that. But what's important is, of course, the state government reintroduced the measure of the safety and security rebate. So that does allow senior card holders to claim up to $400 per household for eligible security equipment, which does include CCTV, home alarm systems and security. So that's an important measure which is available and can be accessed. Now, I do want to get into the complexities of both CCTV and security around complexes, because it is not as easy. And I understand it may sound very simple, but the reality is that often when we see issues, it actually can be tenants letting in other tenants, not tenants letting other guests or family members into that complex. And so it does present challenges in managing complexes if it is tenants, and I'm not blaming it, but if a tenant does invite someone in or has guests coming through the door. And so it is not as simplistic to simply say that we march in to bring in gates or to bring in security cameras, because many public housing complexes do house a lot of vulnerable people, particularly those experiencing or escaping family domestic violence, people with mental health concerns, or people who do not simply want to feel violated or videotaped. So, you know, there has to be a very clear demonstrated need due to the significant costs involved of CCTV, with the cost of monitoring, recording and servicing those devices. Now, I actually think it's really important to look at Mosman Park and look at actually, and we have to be driven also by the evidence. And I do say this respectfully to the member, that between January and May this year across Mosman public housing stock, including complexes, there were 55 complaints received by the department, of which 22 could not be substantiated as disruptive behaviour. So that could be dogs, everyday noise, neighbour interpersonal disputes. 29 related to noise complaints, which was loud music, excessive noise and yelling. 4 related to domestic arguments within households. 1 complaint related to threatening behaviour. So I appreciate you get these relays to you, member, but the department has to be guided by clear evidence, and based on that, what is provided to the agency and what is actually reported on, I think it's fair to say that CCTV could not be justified on that case. I also note that we have to look at the crime stats in the area as well. It did peak in 2015-16, but actually what we have seen is that overall crime or antisocial behaviour has trended downwards substantially over the past few years. And so assault non-family offences have decreased by 85% compared with the same quarter in 2015-16. So I want to assure people this. We do take it seriously. There are a range of measures already in place in accordance with regulations and for seniors accommodation. But there does need to be a very demonstrated need and that additional security measures, such as security cameras, are only considered by communities for those complexes with ongoing serious disruptive and criminal behaviour.